little yarnivores and spiderettes, Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today I'm going to show you how to knit a mitered square. This is really actually quite simple, and these are great if you want to deviate from the typical square where you're just going back and forth in rows. With this one, actually, you cast on the total number of stitches for two sides, and then you decrease along the center, and it creates this really neat look, okay? And you can make a number of different size squares, and I'm going to go into that. And this one actually was done, I believe, using Vanna's Choice with size 10 needles, which are 6mm needles. And I cast on for this piece a total of 25 stitches using the knit cast on, which I'm going to show you as well. I have another tutorial on that as well. And so without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so we're going to start with a slip knot, of course. And for this particular piece, we're going to do a knitted cast on. So you don't need a tremendously long tail. Short tail will be just fine. And so we're going to do the knitted cast on for a total of 25 stitches. We already have one right here. And so going into that loop, as if to knit, yarn over, pull through, then pull up that loop, and then go underneath, and through, and on. There you go. And that's a knit cast on stitch. And I'm going to do a bunch, but not all 25 on camera. Also, can't stress this enough, be sure that you're working with your working yarn, not your tail. So again, in as if to knit, wrap it around, pull through, pull up that loop, and then go underneath, like so, and cinch. There you go. In as if to knit, wrap it around, pull the loop up, go underneath, and cinch. In as if to knit, wrap it around, pull that loop up, go underneath, like so, and then pull. In as if to knit, wrap it around, pull through, pull the loop up, go underneath, and pull. So I'm going to have a total of 25 cast on knit cast on stitches on my needle, and then we'll continue on with the first row. Alrighty, row 1. So I have cast on all of my 25 stitches, and we're going to get right in. So to begin with, we are very simply just going to knit all of the stitches for this row with the exception of the last stitch. And I will explain that as well. What we're going to do for this piece is we're going to create a slip stitch edge. And that is going to help us if you want to connect your squares together, stitch them together. That will help because it creates a really nice clean edge for stitching squares together. And I'm going to show you as soon as I get to the end. And now for this first row, we start by knitting all of our stitches, and the very last stitch is going to be a purl stitch, okay? And then for the rest of the pattern, the first stitch will be slipped as if to knit, and then the last stitch is always purl, okay? And that creates a really nice clean edge, and I'm going to show you that as soon as I have reached the end of this row. And also I will get into dimensions as well. Basically, it's a matter of however many stitches you want for the sides of the square. It needs to be a number divisible by 2. It needs to be an even number. And then you have to add 1 for the middle, the center stitch, which is the odd one. So that's why we're doing a total of 25. So it's going to be 12 stitches on each side and then 1 in the center, for a total of 25. You know, but you can use whatever number works for you, of course. So you can make really big squares or really tiny itty bitty squares, whatever works for you. All right. And then so we've reached the last stitch, so we're going to purl this last one, like so. All right. And that's the end of row 1. And before we go into row 2, I'm going to show you. See, right here, this is our slip stitch edge. And same thing on this side. So as far as joining squares together, it's really that much easier. And this is our knit cast on edge here and here. Okay? Just so that you get an idea. So, like I said, this edge here and here are the stitches that we actually cast on. And it's going to look a little weird at first, but trust me, it'll make sense as we go on. All right, so on to row 2. All right, row 2. So, to begin with, of course, make sure that you're not working with your tail, but you're working with your working yarn. I can never stress it enough, because it's happened to me so many times. All right, so the first stitch, just slip it as if to knit, like so. Then we are going to knit the first 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Always like to double check. So I've got our end one here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep. Okay. So then, now we've reached the center. So what you need to do is slip this next stitch as if to knit. Slip that. Then knit the next 2 stitches together. So sometimes I like to go in and loosen up these 2 stitches just a little bit, because sometimes they can be a little difficult to work into and a little tight because, well, that's just how I end up stitching. So I loosen up the stitches a little, then I go in and I knit them together, these next 2. Oops, sorry. I go in and I knit these 2 stitches together like so, and pull those 2 off. Then that slip stitch right there, we're going to pass that over our decrease. See this one right here? I'm going to pass that over that decrease. and off, like so. And I'm going to do this a bunch more times, so it may look a little weird, but it'll make sense. So now that we've done that, we need to knit the next 10 stitches again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and we have to purl that last stitch. So yarn to the front and purl, like so. And that's the end of row 2. Now, you will notice, right now even, that if you spread out your stitches, the center, it looks a little bit wonky. Well, this is actually going to be our corner. So if it looks a little weird, don't worry. It will make sense as we go on. All right, so we'll go on to row 3. Alrighty, row 3. So now for row 3 and every other odd row for that matter, it's going to be exactly the same. The only difference is when we're doing the even rows. So for all of the odd rows, quite simply, it is slip the first stitch as if to knit, and then knit all of the stitches until you reach the last one, and the last one is going to be a purl stitch. That's on every odd row. So you get sort of a little bit of a break every other row, which is always nice. So I'm going to do this one, but for the consequent odd numbered rows, you can do those on your own. That's okay. You don't have to watch me do it. But just keep in mind where you're at. I often find it very, very helpful to have a counter such as I have, or scrap of paper that you can do some tally marks on. I find that exceptionally helpful. All right, so I'm just knitting across just as there was nothing going on in the middle. Okay, just a couple more. Now, like I was saying before, you can add, however many stitches you want when you're doing your initial cast on. Just be sure that it's a number divisible by 2, and then add 1. So if you wanted, say, what was it, 10 side stitches for each side of your square, you would have 10 side stitches for each side, and then add 1 for the center stitch. So you would do a total of 21 stitches, right? So we've reached the last stitch, yarn to the front, and we purl. And there you go. All right, so that was the end of row, not round, 3. And so we're going to keep right on in with row 4. And also, as you can see, when I spread out my stitches, the center, it's got a bit of a peak. And if it looks like that, that's how it's supposed to look. Trust me, it'll make sense as you go on. All right, so we'll be right back. Row 4. All right, so going to start right in by slipping the first stitch as if to knit. Now the last row, we knit 10 stitches. Right now, we need to decrease that to 9 stitches. So after slipping that first stitch as if to knit, we then knit 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. 2, 4, 6. Yep. Okay. Then, again, we're going to do the same thing as we did before, where we slip as if to knit the next stitch, then going in and knitting these next two together. So scooching right in, like so, and we're going to knit these two together, and then pass the slip stitch over that decrease. So going into that next one here, and then passing it over that decrease, like so. Then knit the next 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Then purl the last stitch. Like so. And that's the end of row 4. Okay, so then for row 5, slip the first stitch as if to knit, knit all of your stitches, and then purl the last one. Okay, I'll meet back up with you for row 6. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, row 6. Okay, so as you can see, the center is really starting to pucker. All right, so now there's a really easy way of remembering if you don't have a counter on hand where you're at. Now, maybe a little tricky to see, but you see this bump right here, and then this bump right here. So imagine that's 10, 9. So then on this next row, for row 6, we need to do 8 stitches, 8 knit stitches on either side, okay? So we're going to keep going. So we need to slip that first stitch as if to knit, then knit 8 stitches. I mean, of course, if you need to write it down, that's okay. You know, by all means, do whatever works. So we're going to knit 8 stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then, of course, we need to slip the next stitch as if to knit, knit the next 2 stitches together, there we go, and then knit these 2 together, and then pass that slip stitch over our decrease. like so. Then knit the next 8 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then purl the last stitch. There we go, and boom. Alrighty. So then for row 7, slip the first stitch, as always, as if to knit, and then knit the remainder of your stitches with the exception of the last one, which you will purl. Okay, so I'm going to meet up back with you when I'm ready for row 8. I'll be right back. Alrighty, row 8. Now, I mentioned before that you can count these bumps in the center. So that would be 10, 9, 8. So then the next row we would be doing 7. Another way that you can go about it would be to, dismiss these end 2 stitches because this is a purl and this is a slip. Then you would count in, so it would be 2 on this side, 2 on that side, 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and then an additional 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you've got your 3 in the center. Okay, so that is another way of determining how many you would need. See, there's the 3 in the center, dismissing that 1 on the end, so we've got 7 there. Okay, and because it's, like I said, dismissing the end 2 and the center 3, because that's where we're doing the slip, the knit 2 together, and the pass over. Okay, so if you can find, where your center 3 are, and then dismiss the center 3, dismiss that one, and then you can see, oh, I need to do 7 regular knit stitches. Okay, just another little trick that I find helps, because sometimes it's not always easy to have a counter, or, it's easy to lose track of where you're at. All right, so for row 8, I'm going to slip that first stitch as if to knit, and then knit, as we have ascertained, the next 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we've reached the center 3. So that's slip as if to knit. Knit these next 2 together. And there we go. And then pass the slip stitch over the decrease. There we go. And then knit 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Purl the last stitch. And there you go. All right, so that's the end of row 8. For row 9, be sure to slip the first stitch as if to knit, and then knit all of your stitches, and then purl the last stitch. And then I will meet back up with you when I'm done with row 9, and we are ready to go for round 10. Be right back. Alrighty, round 10. So for row 10, I'm going to start very much like we have been. And let me show you. See, it's really coming to a point now, and that is exactly what we want. It's a good thing. I know it looks weird, but it'll make sense, don't worry. So we're going to slip that first stitch as if to knit, and now we're going to knit the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now slip the next as if to knit, and we're going to knit these next 2 together. Just going to scooch my needle in here, loosen up those stitches a little bit, and let's get right in there. Here we go. Knit these 2 together, and then pass the slip stitch over our decrease, like almost like so, like so. All right, and then knit the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, purling the last one, as always. All right, and that is the end of row 10. Now, again, for row 11, slip the first stitch as if to knit, knit all the way across, and then purl the last one. All right, so I'm going to meet back up with you for row 12. All right. Alrighty, row 12. So going to slip our first stitch as if to knit, then knit 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip the next stitch as if to knit, and then knit these next 2 together. So it can be a little tricky, but little patience, little perseverance goes a long way. So knitting these 2 together, and then passing the slip stitch over our decrease, like so. And then we're going to knit the next 5 stitches and purl the last. Now, you may be wondering, why am I doing each row like this when it's essentially the same? I'll tell you why. It's because out of all of the instructions I've ever seen, I find them rather frustrating because it just says, follow in this method, in this fashion, until you only have 3 stitches left on your needle. Well, but what if you want, a more, thorough kind of explanation? Well, here you are. You know me. If you've been following me for any length of time, by the way, I'm purling this last stitch. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know I like to be thorough. So purling that last stitch. Even if my videos are a bit on the long side, I would much, much, much rather be thorough than leave you guys wondering, how did he do that? So that was the end of row 12. Now for row 13, of course, again, we're slipping this first stitch as if to knit, knitting our way across, and then purling the very, very last stitch, okay, for row 13. And I'm going to meet back up with you for row 14. Alrighty. All right, row 14. So as you can see, we are most assuredly getting there, and as we keep decreasing, this point will form itself. All right, so for row 14, we're going to continue right along, footloose and fancy free. And so we're going to slip that first stitch as if to knit, then knit the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And if ever in doubt, doing this purl, 4, we've got 3 in the center, so we're doing exactly as we should be. It's always a good way to double check. So slipping this next one as if to knit, then we're going to loosen these up just a little smidgen and knit them together, these two. There we go. So knitted those two together, and then pass the slipped stitch over our decrease. Knit the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then purl the last stitch, like so. Ta-da! All right, so that was row 14. Row 15, slip the first stitch as if to knit, knit your way across, purl the last stitch, and I will meet back up with you for row 16. Be right back. Row 16. Okay, we're really getting there. And for those of you that have stuck with me for as long as this, I applaud you. So slipping this first stitch as if to knit, knit the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. Slip the next stitch as if to knit, knit the next 2 together. Let's see, can I get in here without priming the stitches? Yes, awesome. All right, so knitting these 2 together, then passing that slip stitch over our decrease, knit the next 3. 1, 2, 3, purl the last, like so. And so that was it for 16. So again, for row 17, slip the first stitch as if to knit, knit your way across, purl the last stitch, and I'll meet back up with you for row 18. Okay. Alrighty, row 18, we're really getting there. So slipping that first stitch as if to knit, and then how many do we need? Just 2, actually. All right, so knit the next 2. 1 and 2. Then slip the next stitch as if to knit. Knit the next 2 stitches together. I'm just priming them. There we go. And here we are. knit these two together, pass the slip stitch over, knit the next two, 1 and 2, and then purl the last, like so. So that was 18, and you know what? We've gotten so far along, and the rows are getting rather short. I'm just going to do 19 on camera and see what I can do about finishing the rest of this on camera for you. So slip that first stitch and just knit our way across. And also I like chit-chatting with you guys. So knit our way across. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the potentiality of the springtime as much as I am. You know, it's sort of here, not quite here, but it's sort of here right now. All right, and so purling this last stitch, like so. So that was 19. And now for row 20. Okay, so yes, just the one. So slipping that first stitch, knit 1 stitch, slip the next stitch, knit the next 2 together, there we go, knit these 2 together, pass the slip stitch over, like so, knit that next stitch, and then purl the last stitch. Okay. Row 21. And so we're going to slip this first stitch. And see, right now, we're pretty much out of stitches because we need to purl this last one, and we're up to these 3. So here's what you do. You are going to now slip this first stitch. So we slipped the first 2 stitches here. Now knit these 2 together, like so. Pass that slip stitch in the middle there over our decrease, and then we're going to purl the last stitch. See, they don't quite explain that in so many of the directions that I've seen, so that's why I'm trying to be as nice and thorough as I can for you. So now for row 22, do the same as we have been, which is, of course, slipping the first, knitting this next one, and then purling the last. Okay. Row 23. Okay, so for row 23, quite simply, this may seem a little weird, but we're going to now slip this stitch, this first one. We're going to knit these 2 together. I'm just priming them first. So we're going to knit these 2 together, like so. And then pass that first slip stitch over our decrease, like so. And voila, we are done. See, that wasn't so terrible, was it? So we have ourselves a really, really lovely little square, which you can make a ton of these, sew them together, make a beautiful blanket. All of the diagonals could be, you know, oriented, orientated the same way, or you could have a diagonal going this way and then another one going down that way if you so want to. Really, whatever it is that you like. Now, there are ways of doing what is referred to as domino knitting, I believe, in which as soon as you're done with the square, you can actually start knitting another square in the same fashion, joining it as you go. And if you guys are interested, perhaps I will do a tutorial on that so that you won't have to do sewing, which, not many people, are a huge fan of it, but hey, whatever. So listen, my dears, I really hope that you found this tutorial helpful. By the way, since you've finished off, you would cut your working yarn and you would pull up this loop and then you would sew in your ends, or you can keep the tails that we have here and use them to stitch your squares together if you want to make a big piece. Okay, so I really hope that this was a very nice and thorough explanation of the mitered square for you. And if you liked it, please hit the little thumbs up button down below, because your support always, always means so very much to me. And if you have any questions, comments, what have you, please do so in the comments section down below. I love hearing from you. And if you haven't hit subscribe, please do so as well, because I try to post videos as often as I can, whether it be knitting, crocheting, audiobook narration, or video games on my other channel, Fiber Spider Games. So listen, my dears, until next time, I want you all to stay inspired, stay stitching, and above all... Okay, I messed that up. Stay inspired, stay caffeinated, and stay stitching. Oh, my gosh. I think I need some more caffeine myself. So listen, I'll see you in my next video, and you have a great, great day. Bye for now.